Hey, not to sound rude, but have you been living under a rock? You may instantly recognize the band name, but have you checked out every corner of their discography?
Let's split up and see what we can find out.
For whatever reason, this batch of albums slipped through the cracks of time compared to the mass-appealing chart toppers, so on this episode of SOS, I'm here at your doorstep demanding justice for 7 overlooked and underrated records by well-known bands that don't get the attention they deserve. Hey neighbor, thanks for stopping by. This week we're looking at overlooked albums worth re-examining, and I'm aware that I'm only scratching the surface here, so please drop a comment and let me know what you'd like to see if I do another installment. Grab some popcorn, maybe consider subscribing to ARTV if you haven't, because I know that a lot of y'all lurk around here, and also hit that like button in observance of the almighty algorithm. Scott Weiland famously said, "Do we turn into a butterfly or do we turn from a maggot into a fly?" when promoting Tiny Music's Songs from the Vatican Gift Shop by his band Stone Temple Pilots. Grunge had all but burned out by 1996 following the death of Kurt Cobain 2 years before. STP were reeling as a result of their frontman's addictions, yet somehow in the span of less than 4 years and tens of millions of album sales, they sounded better than ever on Tiny Music. From the moment Push Play begins its almost funky, piano-driven groove, you see how this band punched out the ceilings of who they were to complete the metamorphosis into the most fully realized version of Stone Temple Pilots ever recorded. I'm not gonna spend much time waxing nostalgic over the singles, those being Paper Heart, Lady Picture Show, and Big Bang Baby, but they are excellent reminders of how fully rounded and tight-knit they've become. And fun fact, Trippin' on a Hole in a Paper Heart was actually the first STP song that I ever fell in love with, thanks in no small part to that orgasmic solo. The deep cuts are where the brilliance really shines through. Adhesive, for example. These grunge rockers stepping into the jazz lounge somehow feels perfectly natural for them, fueled by the dazzling bass work of Robert DeLeo, but so does the harder rocking edge powering the album's big guns, Tumble in the Rough, and the closer 7 Caged Tigers. Things might feel out of control when jumping from the Gentle Giant and So I Know, featuring a beautiful performance vocally from Weiland, to the shouty punk rage on display on Art School Girlfriend, but somehow it all tangles together to make a heavy and soft work of art, even if from a distance, it just looks like 4 guys tossing paint at a canvas. Our bodies are a canvas too, and you can sculpt it perfectly with today's video sponsor, MANSCAPED. Their products have been a part of my daily routine for years now, and they just launched a product line I'm super stoked about, the Beard Hedger Pro Kit, to give you that clear, perfectly trimmed and conditioned beard, no matter what style you're rocking. The waterproof trimmer is the kit's superstar, boasting a whopping 20 hair cutting lengths, which for me means I can finally dump my old corded trimmer, guards, and add-ons. The Beard Hedger is designed to require fewer passes, which means less irritation for your skin thanks to its titanium-coated T-blade. It's actually pretty damn satisfying to trim things up. But wait! There's more! Also in the kit is beard shampoo and conditioner to keep your facial hair healthy, in addition to the beard balm to add a fresh scent while letting you style and shape your beard any way you want it. Click the top link in the description and use code ARTV at checkout to receive 20% off and free shipping. That's code ARTV for the discount, and you'll also get 3 free gifts: a beard brush, comb, and something I probably got a little too excited about: beard scissors. Thanks to Manscaped for sponsoring this video, and shout out to you guys for using my links when I have them. You know that sponsors like this help us keep the content flowing and the lights on. And speaking of content, now back to the video.
Because it's now or never.
It's genuinely white-knucklingly upsetting that Metric doesn't receive very much recognition outside of their biggest hits. Very few can claim to have skin in the game the way this Canadian electronic indie rock group do, always remaining consistent and bouncing back strong after an album that some, including me, were underwhelmed by. I'm of course talking about Metric's lucky number 7, Art of Doubt, released in 2018. My mind was blown, and frankly still is, by the lukewarm critical and commercial reception, but that response that it got does nothing but fire me up for this record that much more. This is the comeback album that encapsulates everything great about a very underappreciated band. Art of Doubt truly makes an hour zip by like a rocket. It's not like they spend the entire record rocking out, although that definitely lights up at least half of the runtime. It's the care and nuance given to every delightful detail hidden in plain sight, and the fact that they let these songs breathe for as long as they need to. Gravitating towards the sharp-edged moments of catharsis is definitely natural, and of course Dressed to Suppress, Die Happy, hell, even the jaw-dropping confidence of Risk, these are all great high-octane thrillers that hook you. But just as deserving of praise is the synthetic stunner Anticipate, the culling Underline the Black, or the 80s film Magic embraced on Now or Never Now.
They came in ways of pain. We had ourselves a time.
Alaskan natives Portugal the Man were burning up the indie scene in the mid to late 2000s, signing to Equal Vision Records and growing their audience with the success of their 2009 single, People Say. You might know this band for their other hit, The Big Kahuna Feel It Still, but almost an entire decade before the mainstream hummed along, we find ourselves in a retrospective limbo when discussing their fifth album, American Ghetto. I'm of the opinion that this is a really strong, not amazing, but still worthwhile outing that simply got buried between two much more successful albums. The Satanic Satanist was their first album to hit the Billboard 200, but less than 8 months later, they drop American Ghetto, which sadly doesn't chart at all, only for them to immediately hit the studio again for their sixth album in 5 years for their breakthrough moment, In the Mountain in the Cloud. Erase those albums out of sight for now, look at that valley in between, and what you'll get is the chill, easygoing, but subtly addictive American Ghetto. Apparently Portugal wrote this record as an ode to the places they'd hang out at as kids, and that hazy, lazy line between childhood innocence and instigating trouble is captured sublimely. There's some massive diamonds hiding in plain sight if you're into the kind of indie scuzz they're selling. The Pushers Party borders on psychedelia with that tangible groove. When the War Ends adds an interesting twist of growth with the female vocals intertwining their frontmans, and even the album's most well-known song, the single The Dead Dog, is still underrated and an absolutely stellar work of art. Try not to think of Nimrod as an album meant to be a coherent body of work, but instead an ever-evolving mirage that pulled out some of the most ambitious, thoughtful work ever out of Green Day. With the music ranging from punk to surf rock to ska, the Bay Area trio bet it all on black and won out artistically, but commercially, they didn't exactly see huge sales. As fans got the bigger picture, they're not here to make Dookie or even Insomniac Part 2. Nimrod only managed to sell 81,000 in its first week, which isn't great considering Dookie sold 10 million units in the US alone, but thanks to the strength of the ever-annoying Good Riddance Time of Your Life, yes, it probably is my least favorite Green Day song, it eventually went double platinum. I should clarify that even though I see this as a collection of bold ideas, there's still a really great pace and flow to the album that constantly rewards the listener with ear candy, whether that be the adrenaline rush provided by The Grouch or Platypus, the persistent nostalgia of Scattered, or the musically rich roller coaster that starts on uptight and connects the dots masterfully all the way through the end of Hoshinka. Mike Dirnt is a stud on Nimrod as he tackles some of his most skilled bass work, interlocking Trey Cool's rooted in punk but definitely expansive drumming that takes the spotlight off of their frontman ever so slightly to remind everyone that this three-piece wouldn't function without them serving as the anchor.
Coax me out my low, sink into tomorrow.
For the fans, ranking a band's discography is a favorite pastime, and while no ranking can be objectively wrong, the disrespect from general audiences and even from some of the diehards put on Humbug's name is an international crime. Officer, arrest this man, he said Humbug was mid. The Arctic Monkeys dominated the conversation in the 2000s indie rock space, so I'd never make myself the fool on parade by calling them underrated, but I think you're starting to gather that with this list, very famous bands can have very overlooked records, and that's Humbug in a handbasket. Queens of the Stone Age ringleader Josh Homme frolicked and fucked about with Alex Turner and company in the literal desert as they crafted this psychedelic stoner rock masterpiece. bass. Thunderous lashes of guitar and drums sucker punch us to keep the energy high, balancing out beautifully with the more reflective but addictive tracks like Secret Door, the seductive trap Dance Little Liar, and the ridiculously well-written closer The Jeweler's Hands. What a fucking underrated tune. This is an all-hands-on-deck affair where no member feels more important than the other. I'm talking backing vocals, guitar solos, sharpened out rhythmic sleaze, and of course the coolest cucumber of them all, Alex Turner, who shines with quite possibly the most evocative performances of his entire career. Pink hair, braces, and ska. What a time to be alive at the dawn of the 21st century. The band took some time to recharge their batteries following the diamond-certified success of their breakthrough LP Tragic Kingdom, arriving at the wild world explored in great detail on their final rock album, ironically not the one with rock in the title, Return of Saturn. It almost seems surreal to think that my younger viewers probably know Gwen Stefani more as a solo artist or even a judge for The Voice, rather than the actual great work that she was a part of in her band No Doubt. We took the other members for granted, given that their playing is just as vital as Gwen's role as the primary songwriter. A range of everything from acoustic guitars, island vibey drums, and strutting keys round out the equation, which made me realize that at least for No Doubt, the seemingly simplistic nature isn't a weakness for them at all. Impatience may have been another factor for why this album failed to match the success of Tragic Kingdom, as 5 years had passed between the two, and some of their audience had probably moved on. Not to the point where I could call this album a flop, but it's not nearly as beloved or remembered in the same way as the records that came before and after. Quality songs speak for themselves, so fuck the numbers. Return of Saturn is easily the best of those three. The range flexed on the singles alone intrigued me enough to buy the CD again a few years back, and while it's definitely padded with fluff at nearly an hour long, it's not an intrusive problem given how well No Doubt thrives in more of a mature, mid-tempo lane with occasional bursts of solar energy. For every head-bopping anthem like Comforting Lie or Artificial Sweetener, there's a pair of tracks taking their sweet time in a good way, a la Suspension Without Suspense, or the almost ironic modern day given Gwen's career path and trajectory, Magic's in the Makeup. The Cure from 1984 just hits different, man. A solitary single and a long tour propelled their forgotten fifth album The Top, not necessarily to career highs, but not to a low point either, and I think it's incredibly slept on. Post-punk may still be at the forefront, but this is definitely not an overtly dark record like many fans were expecting after the gothic rock masterpiece Pornography. Robert Smith was inspired by the world at large, and the album reflects that in a way that I can see as being divisive, but ultimately worthwhile. Some fans and critics were positive towards it, but most either tore into it or just shrugged their shoulders. But after all this time, I'm feeling like it's deserving of a closer listen. The band went absolutely hog wild with their playing on The Top, boasting some of their hardest hitting drums, weirdest synth breaks, and a hodgepodge rotation of strings that feel almost improvised, matching the very raw energy of the album that they're a part of. Robert's paranoia catches up to him on cuts like Wailing Wall that go all in with the Middle Eastern influences, while Piggy in the Mirror turns the page to something even more eclectic yet keenly self-aware as he comments on self-hatred through the band's flute and strum fever dream instrumentation. One of my favorite Cure songs, Give Me It, is featured on The Top. I just love those racing drums backing the shrieking guitars. But obviously, I'm not delusional. This is a flawed, scattered album. Skips are likely gonna happen, and some of their choices flat out do not make sense, probably because they were not meant to make sense, but I highly suggest giving this one another listen with fresh ears. What should I include if I do another installment of overlooked albums from popular bands? Let me know in the comments, and also share any fond memories that you have with these records that I mentioned today, or if you're just hearing them for the first time. Thanks again to MANSCAPED for sponsoring today's episode. I appreciate you guys using my links when I have them. You can check out some more overlooked albums right here, and I'll see you next time.